everybody. This is Team Spirit, and I'm Lauren.
I'm Carrie.
And I'm Emily.
And this week we are finally talking about shadow work. We've only talked about it, mentioning like 100 times. We need to do a full episode on it. So here we are.
Woohoo! Such a fun topic.
Yeah.
I think what's so interesting about it is how trendy it is.
It is very trendy right now. It's been trendy for a while.
Yeah.
All those
With that
journals.
workbook, there's that workbook that's floating around that like everybody has in their store. First of all, who made it? Does
Yeah,
anybody know?
Emily's got it.
You have it?
Let's see.
I'd love to know who the original creator is because I've just seen it everywhere.
Called Now Drops LLC.
What did you think of it, Emily?
I mean, like everything else in my life, I've started it and not finished it, but
I have it too.
Did you start it, Carrie?
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty entry level. I feel like it's really good if you've like never heard of shadow work before.
yeah.
And you just are diving into your shadow work journey. I feel like the prompts are good. I feel like when you've been doing this work for longer and you've kind of been on a healing journey, it doesn't even scratch the surface. Like it would require more depth.
Yeah, agreed.
It's kind of like an easy sell, you think, and that's why so many people have it in their store because it's such a entry level conversation.
Listen, it's self-reflective questions, so
Right.
you really can't go wrong there. But
I personally don't think that it's necessary to have this. I think you can do all of this and a lot more just on your own. You don't need to buy a journal.
right.
But like Carrie said, if you are new to shadow work, yeah, it explains, like at the beginning of it, it explains what shadow work is, how
You want
you
to
do
read
it.
that for the listeners who maybe aren't aware of shadow work?
Yeah, I can read what it says. It says, what is shadow work? Shadow work is about revealing the unknown. The shadow is an unconscious aspect of your personality that the ego does not identify with. You may experience your shadow when you're triggered in social interactions, relationships, and episodes of anxiety or sadness. The unconscious mind contains repressed emotions from painful events, causing impulsive behaviors and unwanted patterns that form your quote unquote dark side. In short, the shadow is composed of the parts of yourself that you have forgotten, abandoned, and repressed in order to grow and fit in with the mold of society. Think back to your childhood and recall the ways in which you would express yourself only to be rejected. You might have been crying or told to stop. Or you might have been laughing uncontrollably in a classroom and given a dirty glance from your teacher or peers. There are countless ways in which you may have been reprimanded for what is deemed as bad and praised for what was good, learning to adjust your behavior accordingly. Wow, I mean,
it's pretty
come
good.
on.
It's pretty good definition.
Yeah.
Right.
That's like an example. And then it says, before beginning your shadow work, it is important to set an open intention to notice and question your own reactions. The shadow is apparent in strong emotions and dissatisfactions. So yeah, I think that's
pretty spot on.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it before, how it's so easy to get lost in shadow work because you're delving into the negative things that you've gone through or you feel. And then if you're not careful, you get stuck there being like, wow, I'm the worst.
Right.
Yeah, it's not about just writing down all the horrible things that happened to you.
No.
And I think that is like a big misunderstanding with shadow work. You're not supposed to relive the trauma. You're supposed to get to the root of it. And, of course, you do have to somewhat go back to those memories to be able to get to the depths of it and the root of it. But it's not supposed to be obsessive. It's not something you're supposed to do every single day for the rest of your life. It's something that you pick up and you put down and you pick up and you put down. And shadow work is never complete because we're human and we're always going to have human emotion, positive and negative. So it's like, a lot of people and take it very, very seriously. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, but it's not my way of doing shadow work. I am more lax about it and I have a lot of like grace for myself, which I personally think is the point.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised. There's a lot of others that it's very intense and I don't really know how I feel about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk. I feel like I've seen a lot of the more in like really focusing on negative with a lot of like mirror work that's kind
Yes.
of tied to it, where
Yeah.
you're really like forcing yourself. It's kind of a different type of form of therapy, really. And
Yeah.
like you said, it's never over because we're constantly changing and going through new things, and
Yeah.
you can't just sit and stew in that stuff.
No.
What are some different ways that you guys have done shadow work?
I'll do it watching TV shows or movies. I kind of like, and it's obviously with characters that I relate to. So it's kind of like I'm watching myself from a third party perspective. And it really helps me to kind of, then I'll relate it back to like experiences in my life. And it really helps me to kind of see all sides of it. Especially that's helped me a lot with like my romantic relationship trauma and like probably my childhood trauma as well. I don't know many people that do that, but that is something that I do.
That's so interesting because I think
Yeah.
we all do it way more than we realize. Like you said that, and I was like, oh my God, I do that all the time. And I've had conversations with friends who've done the same thing. They're like, I just watched this and it kind of brought back this. I didn't even realize how much I identify that. Like we all watch things and identify with someone.
Yep.
And it's Mark and I are watching Welcome to Plathville right now. And like, first of all, that show is loaded, but it has really, we've been watching this in a way of identifying with these characters because we see so much of ourselves in them. But then like we see our growth in what places that they didn't, or
Yes.
like then we're seeing our mistakes and their mistakes. And it's I love that you just said that. I never put the two and two together with that really.
That's shadow work.
Yeah, it is. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's a healthy way because you're
Yes.
Neutral.
yeah.
You're
Yeah,
you're
you're
coming from
watching.
that third party looking in
Mhm.
neutral standpoint.
And it's helping you to have compassion for that version of yourself
Right.
that you
Yeah.
otherwise would hate on and be
Mhm.
negative towards. I've done that all the live long day. But when you do it that way, you have a lot of compassion for
Yeah.
yourself.
Because
Yeah.
it's easy to have compassion and empathy for other people, but
Correct.
we're really
Right.
hard on ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How about you, Lauren?
I feel like I try to do it through my journaling. Like when I'm doing any of like my spell work or like my baths, that's when I really kind of sit with myself, and like my meditations too. I just kind of sit and be with myself and let myself think and see what comes up. And then a lot of times I'm like, I wonder why that I thought of that like right now. And then I kind of write about it and see and
Yeah.
just like let it out. And sometimes you don't have to deal with it in the moment. You can just kind of be like, huh, that was interesting that this happened at X point and I still feel something about it now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times this is probably really weird, but I drive in silence a lot just cuz to see what pops up in my brain, which is a lot. But I think that's mostly
Same.
I think that's mostly how I do it is through just like a conscious meditation
Yeah.
and reflection with myself and then journaling when I am good about journaling.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
What about you,
Yeah,
Carrie?
am terrible at journaling. I would love to be able to journal, but I just don't. I don't know if I'm not disciplined enough. I don't know what it is, but
Hard.
I really struggle with that. You know what's really funny is like with shadow work, I feel like it's a lot like what you just said. For me, it's very like in the moment and it's very conscious. I mean, I have little kids. I have a 2-year-old and I have a 4-year-old, and I love them so much. But like most people, I'm sure that have young kids can understand that it can be very, very triggering.
I was just going to
And
ask you about that.
yeah, and I try so hard to always, show compassion and patience and understanding, but I'm not perfect. And, when we're sleep deprived and we're sick and there's a lot going on and the emotions are running really high, I mean, like everyone, we all snap sometimes. But I think the difference is that I can typically recognize when I'm getting, what's the word? It's like deregulated. When I feel like my system is not regulated. I feel it physically, I feel it emotionally, I feel it mentally, and I can typically take a moment away and I hide in the bathroom, or I just literally walk away for a minute and I acknowledge myself that, okay, you're angry right now. Like, and my kids will hear me say that. And I think that that's healthy. Like, I will say, okay, Carrie, you're angry. Like, acknowledge that emotion. I think we need to acknowledge how we feel.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of go in of like, okay, well, why am I angry? Well, nothing's going your way. Okay, well, why is that triggering you that nothing's going your way? Because I always had to be in line when I was this young, or I always had to fall in line. I always had to listen. These kids don't listen. Why is it triggering me that they're not listening? And then you just dive deeper and deeper and deeper. And I do it in the moment. I mean, I really do. Like, I don't sit there for 20, 30, 40 minutes, but I literally take 3 to 5 minutes and I just acknowledge it, and I can let it go a lot quicker when I do that. So I do shadow work in the moment, really. I don't really designate a time to do it. It's just I act on it when that shadow comes out, like right then and there. And then if I don't, you know, if I don't, then typically, like you said, when I'm driving or later on in the day when it's quiet, I can sit back and I can be like, okay, we need to do better. But also I like understanding for myself of why I felt that way. But it's hard. It's hard. And like, that's just kids, man. That talk about mirrors.
Because Emily and I, we don't have kids. Carrie does. So I was going to ask, like, that having kids, and especially when you see so much of yourself in your children, because I think that's how it generally works. I don't know. That's how I seem to understand it. I feel like a lot of things can come out of it, and it's all how you handle it, because it's almost like breaking that cycle, because you can kind of see, am I doing to my kids the things that triggered me?
Or
what,
I think, you know, my parents did. And of course, like sometimes we will fall under that umbrella.
For sure.
I don't know if it's natural or what it's learned behavior, which I guess makes it like our natural reaction, but it's hard. And I mean, I catch myself, I really, really do. I can feel it. Like I can feel it in my body of like wanting to yell or wanting to, you know, threaten to take something away, or like, it's hard. But I look at, like, especially since Leanna's a little bit older now, she just turned 4 in December, and she's very empathic. Like she definitely feels emotions very deeply, and she always has. And when I'm getting frustrated, or when her dad's getting frustrated, she will say to us, okay, mom and dad, it's time to take a deep breath. And it's because that's what we've taught her.
Right.
So it's like, you know, and I don't try to hide the fact that I'm human. Like, you know, if I'm angry and I lash out at them and I yell, let's just say I yell at them, I always go back, like after I've calmed down, and I tell them, my emotions, mommy's feelings are not your responsibility. It's not your responsibility to manage my emotions or daddy's emotions. And I think that has really come a long way, because they don't feel that burden as much. Like it, you know, it's like whenever my parents were going through something and emotions were running really high, I always felt like I needed to jump in and fix it and make everything better. And I don't feel like they do. I feel like they say, okay, take a deep breath, but they're not so attached, because Sean and I really consciously try to get it together and explain to them, like, okay, we're feeling this way because, and it's never we're feeling this way because you're not listening, or you're not doing what I'm asked, or you. It's just, you know, I'm feeling this way because, and we're honest for whatever the reason is, of like, mommy didn't sleep well last night, and so I'm having big feelings, or whatever it is. But it's hard. It's hard. And I think that like society has made it like this gentle parenting thing. I don't know if it's helped or made things worse on the parenting side, because I feel like gentle parenting, the expectations of like, I have to break generational cycles and curse it, like that is so high, and parenting is so hard anyway, that it's just like, just be authentic with your kids. Just try your best, acknowledge when you F up, and apologize. Like that is really what, and allow your kids to feel those feelings. Like if you're allowed to go through the house stomping your feet and slamming a door, why are you going to get mad at a 2-year-old for doing the same thing? Like
half the time a my like nieces or nephews act up, I'm like, I wish sometimes I could handle it like that and like not be you're insane. Like I know better and I won't do that. They don't know better and they have to have
Right.
that little grace. But that doesn't mean
Right.
I don't want to act like that too
But
sometimes.
most adults don't know better. Most
Right.
adults
Yes.
don't. And it's like you are, however old you are, 30 something, 40 something years old, and you can't regulate your own emotions, but you're expecting a 2-year-old to regulate theirs. Like, come
Right.
on. So, yeah, my kids are my shadow work.
Well, and I want to say, Carrie, I think you are an incredible mother. Like,
Oh, thank
I
you.
couldn't say it enough.
Thanks.
I think
I
people these
try. I
days,
try my best.
I just think it's the bravest thing a person can do. And I mean, I don't think it's for me. And I've always kind of felt that because I don't know. There's just something in me that goes, that's horrifying. And I just think that
It
parents are
is.
so brave.
Totally feel you.
It's definitely horrifying, but I will say, like, they teach me so much. They are like little teachers. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. And they're so pure, and they just, I don't know, they make me look at myself a lot deeper.
And I think that's really a big thing that a lot of people don't do. They probably see those things and they're so afraid of them that then they punish because they're like, "Oh God, I don't even want to deal with that," because ultimately then they have to deal with themselves. And
Exactly.
I could see why that would scare you. I mean, I get it. I feel for the parents that are scared to look at that part of themselves because they see, especially if they had some sort of trauma and they're seeing
Yeah.
it come out like that, the triggers that have to come from that
Oh,
are just have to be so heavy.
yeah.
And I guess
1000%.
that's where the shadow work can really come in to help, but also like that's why it's so important to not get stuck there. Because
Right.
okay, so you see it, you recognize it, and then you can work on it, or you get stuck there and then really just create it again for your
And
kids.
just awareness is half the battle.
Mhm.
You know, we all mess up. We're all human. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's
Mhm.
perfect. There's no perfect parent out there. And we all get triggered. And I think the biggest thing is like, if you can just acknowledge, even if it's not in the moment, but later on that day or the next day, and you're like, I definitely wished I would have handled that better. And you just
Yeah.
try to do better each time. Be easy on yourself, because I mean, kids are so forgiving. I mean, they really are, but it's
Yeah.
important to voice and vocalize that you are sorry, that mommy and daddy or whoever do make mistakes. We're not perfect. We're not expecting you to be perfect. We're not perfect either. So that's why when we have these big emotions or these big feelings, we need to, and we hurt somebody in the process because we're projecting, we need to apologize and we need to acknowledge that. That's, I think, half the battle. I really do.
And it's never too late to apologize or even to acknowledge someone's good handling of things. Like
Yeah.
I recently I got a box from my parents like I don't know 6 months ago and I finally was like all right, I need to go through it and like toss out this or keep this. And going through it I found a lot of like I found a card from my mom that was so nice. And so I texted her and I was like, "Hey, I am sure when I was a little 15-year-old brat, I did not thank you for this, but like this was really kind and I'm sure I felt something and I just didn't even know how to express my thanks. I was like, I don't remember if I thanked you or not, but as an adult, I'm thanking you now."
Yeah.
And it's fine to go back and have those conversations
Yeah.
again
Mhm.
later. And I think
Yeah.
it's when I first started going to therapy, I remember my mom was like, "Did they tell you how much I messed up?" And I was like, "You really think like that's like I was like in the nicest way possible, you didn't even come up." And I was like, I feel like that's a pretty nice thing to say, like about a therapy
Yeah.
session that you didn't come up. And
Right.
I just think it feels like parents have such like a big thing of always messing up.
Yeah.
And like
Oh,
that was
yeah.
the first thing she was like, what did I do? And I was like, nothing, like yet.
Yeah. It's a big fear. We don't want to mess up our kids, but
Yeah, I think the shift in awareness in therapy has really like it is such a great thing, but it also I think is kind of where a lot of the shadow work in the workbook is like now a trending conversation, because we're
Yeah.
all so aware of these things. And then but we need to also remember that generations before us didn't have the same like opportunities, or like these things weren't readily available for them.
No,
So
right.
it's such a hard.
Because it's like they didn't have it then, but it's like, but they have it now. So it's like
Right.
now you
You can
can.
still go, yeah, right.
Yeah.
You can always go.
Yep.
You can always do the work. You can always heal.
Right.
And I'm sure it is real scary when you know how problematic things were during the time that you were growing up. And then you also were an adult and you carried those things.
Yep.
But you can't, I mean, when you just shove things deep down inside, they come up, and it's always
Yeah.
real ugly
Yep.
when it does.
And that's a good point too, of like with parenting, I think it's even helped me have more compassion for my parents.
I could see that. That makes a lot of sense.
And for me, I'm not a parent, but shadow work has
Mhm.
helped me
Yeah.
have more compassion for my parents.
Yeah.
I was just saying the other day in therapy that I did not grow up in the healthiest of households, but I can now understand where everyone has come from. Now that I'm an adult, now that I'm much more well versed in trauma and shadow work and all that kind of stuff, I can see that the members of my household, they acted the way they did because of the way they grew up. It was better than their childhood. So in a way, they kind of broke a cycle because I wasn't beaten and hit.
Right.
So in a way, they did break their own cycle. So like I said, I straddled the line because it's like they didn't have it then, but they do have it now.
Right.
But it's once I've done the shadow, once I've started doing the work, which is forever. It's not like I
Mhm.
started it and now it's going to end forever. But once I started doing the work and it really started sinking in, my anger and my resentment and my bitterness that I had for most of my teenage and adult life has really turned into compassion and empathy and understanding. Because while I'm not condoning it and it doesn't make it right, I still love the person. So it's like love the sinner, hate the sin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
that saying?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at. And I also feel like having, especially my best friend, having children and her explaining her shadow work to me, I'm kind of piggybacking off of her.
Mhm.
And further, it's like, oh, wow, okay. Like, as she was just saying, how she says to her children, I'm angry because I didn't get sleep. That made me think, wow, because I was always blamed for
Yes.
my parents' anger. It was always my fault. So
Even if they didn't say
now
it.
I'm like, wow, oh, okay, that's how it should have been.
Yes. Yep. I was thinking the same thing, and I was going to bring that up. I think it is the communication that didn't happen for us. And so we
Yeah.
as children,
So we have to be
when
the parents that we wish we had or that our inner child needs.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, because my parents, I mean, I think they did a wonderful job with me, but they did not communicate, and they still don't. And we try. We definitely have, like, they've come a long way with it. I think because I talk so much now that they're like, okay, like and I'm an adult, and they think they're like, okay, she can understand now. But I think we underestimate children and how much they absorb and how much they
Oh,
can
Yeah,
understand
oh,
if you just talk to them.
majorly.
Yeah, and so
Just
I
talk
think
to them. Right.
yeah, and when I was a
Right.
kid and they didn't explain their anger that seemed to come out of nowhere just because, and it wasn't even anger, it was more just like exhaustion. I took it out as I'm the problem. And
same.
especially like if they fought together, well, it's because of me. I did
Right.
this. And when I leave for college, everything will be better. And even when it was better, because it was just the two of them, and they're like, all right, I guess we gotta talk to each other now. I was like, I was the problem. And I know that's not how it works now. But if with a little communication,
Yeah.
I see it with my nieces and nephews too. A lot of the conversations that happen around them, I'm like, they are
Yeah.
absorbing this so much
And
quicker
they
than
pick
you
up on
give
your
them
body. I
credit
mean,
for.
it's your body language.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why you need to back it up with some words. I was just thinking like a perfect example was we took the kids to Paw Patrol 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and we had everything packed. Shoes were on, jackets were on. We were literally walking out the door. We asked the kids 20 times, do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need to go to the bathroom? No, no, no. Get them in their car seat. And Leanna says, I have to go to the bathroom. And immediately I'm like, oh my God, like, you know what, like my energy. And she just looks at me. She's like, are you mad at me? And I'm like, no, I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. I'm stressed out because we're going to be late for the show, but that's okay. Let's go to the bathroom. But it's like, if I would have just left it at that, she would have spent it would have ruined the whole day for her.
Yeah.
Because she would have thought she ruined everything because she had to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, trust me, I react. Like I try to limit those reactions. I try to like keep it together, but sometimes it doesn't always happen that way. And I'm just really big on explaining that it's not their fault. It's not their fault. They're 4 and 2.
Right.
It's not their fault. It's my responsibility to manage my own emotions. It's not their responsibility. So,
and see, I grew up with either parent saying, it is your fault. I asked you a million times, did you have to go to the bathroom? It's your fault. We're going to be late and it's your fault. I'm pissed off.
Drag you to the bathroom.
Yes. Yes. So that right there is like eye-opening to me that it doesn't have to be the way that I was raised. You know what I mean? I don't have kids
followed with an explanation, right?
Right.
I was going to say something and then it's gone.
Any words of advice to the people that are just starting their shadow work journey?
I really liked this quote. It says, unless we do conscious work on it, the shadow is almost always projected. That is, it is neatly laid on someone or something else, so we do not have to take responsibility for it. That is explaining why shadow work is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the way that like you were talking about when you have emotions and explaining it after, you can do that to yourself too.
Yeah.
Like we can do that with ourselves. And I think that's how we learn about a lot about the things we do. When we're like, I mean, why did I just act like that? And have that grace for the younger versions of ourselves too. Cause I don't know, we were kids.
And that's
now
what it's all about, loving yourself through it, loving even the dark side of you, you know, it's like acknowledging that it's there, can't have light without the dark. And you love yourself through that. And
I think also if you look at it as, I feel like with a lot of shadow work, it's inner child. So if you look at it as that is the child version of you, would you talk to a little child like they're or think that they're no, you wouldn't. So have grace and love and compassion for your inner child, which, like I said, is where a lot of shadow work and triggers come from.
Yeah, I agree.
Since we're talking about shadow work, Carrie and I kind of decided that the Healing Waters deck by Rebecca Campbell would be a good one. You want to explain what the Healing Waters are, just briefly?
It's the Akashic Records. Yeah, so the Healing Waters is a realm within the Akashic Records. I would love to do an episode on the Akashic Records coming up.
Yes.
Because that is its
own... next week, right? Is what we were going to do.
Yeah. And I think that's its own, if not multiple episodes, at least one.
Yes.
But it's a realm in the Akashic Records where you can go, anybody has access to this through meditation, through prayer to enter the records, to visit this place of healing. And it's literally exactly what it sounds like. It's almost like when I've gone the last few times, it's like you're in water, but it's not wet. I don't know how to explain it. It's not heavy or dense like water is, but it looks like water. And in a way it feels like water, but also not really. And you just, you spend time there and you receive healing from higher guides through the actual water itself. And it basically transmutes energy.
And it's a perfect place to go to when you are in the process of doing shadow work or after you just unpacked something really heavy. Going to the Healing Waters, I feel like is so healing. Going to the Healing Waters is so healing. Take these two. So I got two. I got the Rainbow, Sweet Relief, New Beginnings, a New Way Forward. And I got the Sirens, Use Your Voice, Expansion, Freedom. And I love the Sirens because it has 3 females on it, which it's representative of us.
I love that. Super
So
cute.
I'm going to read, what was it, Rainbow? I'm going to read that first. All right. So the rainbow says there are countless myths from all corners of the world that feature rainbows. In most cases, the rainbow symbolizes a bridge between heaven and earth and is a sign of good fortune. Perhaps the most widely known story comes from Irish folklore. It says that there's a pot of gold waiting at the end of a rainbow, guarded by a leprechaun. In Norse mythology, Bifrost, the rainbow bridge, connects Earth with Asgard, home of the gods. Ancient Japanese folklore says that rainbows are bridges that the ancestors of humans took to descend to Earth. In the Old Testament book of Genesis, God sets a rainbow in the sky as a comforting symbol to humanity that he will never again destroy the earth with floods. In this oracle, the rainbow is here to comfort and reassure you that the future is full of hope. If you've been going through a challenging time lately, the rainbow is your sign that there are clearer skies ahead of you. Rest deeply in the knowledge that the rainbow brings with it a feeling of sweet relief and a simpler future. There are new beginnings beckoning you forth. There's a clear, vibrant way forward, and the path is ready with opportunities for deep joy, safety, comfort, and peace. And the Healing Waters affirmation is, I'm ready to welcome the new beginnings that are waiting for me.
And rainbows are representative of light.
Yep.
Mhm.
And we're talking about shadow work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I love that.
To always remember the light.
Yep.
Okay. Use your voice, expansion, freedom. In Greek mythology, the sirens were half women, half bird sea creatures that would entice fishermen and sailors with their sweet and sensual songs. Free and empowered, they were not afraid to share their voice and use their natural gifts to attract what they wanted. This card is an invitation to own your gifts, to share your voice, and to surrender into the most expanded version of who you are, to give yourself to the music that plays within, to share your song without wavering, to be free and to dance unrestrained. In life, there is the opportunity to become more and more alive and free with each passing day. However, most of us feel more and more trapped by the life that we've so consciously created. What do you need to do to embrace life fully? How can you step into your most expansive self? Often while we're growing up, we experience hurt, losses, and endings that we fail to address. Those memories stagnate within us and it becomes harder to dance and sing. However, every moment of your life is an opportunity to change, to thrive, and grow. Every moment is an opportunity to express yourself, to find your natural, unique way to dance and sing. Soul inquiry. And this is just a reflective thing that you can think about. How are you being called to share your voice and expand into your most alive, empowered self?
Wow.
I mean, you can't make it up, so.
And once again, you can just listen to this part of the episode and you got it all.
Yeah, real.
I take these moments to go, you know what? We're exactly having the conversations we need to be having.
Yes.
Me too.
Yep.
So, everybody out there, just be kind to yourself. And you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Team Spirit Podcast. Carrie and Emily are on Instagram and TikTok, and both of them go live on TikTok. Carrie can be found at Clarity by Cam, CAM, and Emily at Enchanted Mystic by MK. Brain's not braining today. Anyway, till next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.